Alright everybody, welcome back to another Dead by Daylight video. So today I wanted to talk about exhaustion perks. Another video that's probably going to get people mad at me. Whatever. Anyways, it's just tradition at this point. So what do they want to talk about specifically? Well, the cooldowns on exhaustion is what I wanted to talk about. So a little while ago, Behavior, in their infinite wisdom, gave Smash Hit a shorter cooldown of exhaustion than any other exhaustion perk. Now, I'm not going to say that was a bad idea. I actually think it's a good idea. And honestly speaking, I think they need to change the exhaustion per cooldowns on every single one to more accurately depict their strength and their usefulness. Now, there's a few I've already considered. Now, the two big ones, in my opinion, are Life and Sprint Burst. These two are probably the most commonly picked perks in the game. Some of the most commonly picked perks in the game. And all I would really realistically do to them is I feel like they should be 60 seconds. I think 60 seconds for two of the most powerful effects in the game is more than reasonable. It's only 20 extra seconds. If you really don't like the cooldown, I mean, Vigil always exists. You can always run that and help it out a little bit. I really do think Exhaustion and Sprint Burst should go up to 60 seconds of exhaustion timer. Once again, this is mostly to reflect the strength and their usefulness compared to some of the other ones. As far as going down to 20 seconds, the only exhaustion perk I actually think should also go down to 20 seconds, and people are going to hate me for this, Head On. Head On is not good enough at what it does in most practical situations to warrant 40 seconds of exhaustion. Also, the fact that a lot of times you can use this and miss and then not get your exhaustion off in the first place anyways if they get the stun, it doesn't really matter. So I think giving it 20 seconds, maybe bring it down to 30 instead of 40. Once again, this is my main point with this. Why is Head On the same cooldown as Sprint Burst? I legitimately don't understand why. Before, maybe because, all exhaustion perks were centralized for their effect. They were all 40 seconds. So it made sense back then. But we're in an era now where Behavior has shown that they will change the effects and cooldown rates of perks in the same category, like Exhaustion, just to make up for the fact that it doesn't get used all that much or has that many situations where it's applicable. Smash Hit is arguably not that bad of an Exhaustion perk. The problem is once the killer sees you have it, they will respect every palette in the world. You could argue that's a good thing, bad thing, whatever. A couple other ones I feel like need to be lowered. I think Overcome, because of the fact that technically speaking it has two conditions, I think it should be 30 seconds instead of 40. I know that's not much, it's only a 10-second difference, but it can mean the world. It really can. Overcome is an exhaustion perk that I don't see often, that I actually think is really, really underrated for what it does. The biggest problem Overcome has is if you're going up against a killer that can one-shot down you, like Ghostface, Hillbilly, Bubba, Huntress of the Eerie Hatchet, etc., it doesn't do anything. If you're going up against Legion or Plague, it pretty much doesn't do anything. And Plague in particular, you really can't even heal back up to get use out of it, so you basically have a dead perk slot. Dead Hard, I think being 40 seconds is fine, mostly because it doesn't really matter with Dead Hard, the cooldown, because typically you're running it on its own, and it's only used once you've been unhooked, so... it gets two uses anyways, in theory, even at its max potential. So I think cooldown is actually kind of irrelevant on this perk, but I understand why it has one. And so it can be combined with other exhaustion perks. Balanced landing, though, this is one I talk about a lot. Is balanced landing powerful? Yes. However, balanced landing doesn't work on like half of the maps in the game. Oh, well, you can just go to Killer Shack and jump off the stairs and use it. Yeah, if you're in that particular situation, sure. But I really don't think for how good of it or how situational of an effect this offers, it should be 40 seconds. I would lower it to 30, much like with Overcome. Maybe even 20. Just because, once again, not every map has situations where you can use this. Now, I would be careful with balance, because if you do lower it too much, the maps where it is good on, it becomes insanely good on. So maybe that's why they're keeping it at 40, and maybe keeping it at 40 is a good idea. Background player, I think keeping it at 40 is fine. I haven't really made a video on background player, and I probably won't, because I don't think it's that bad, personally, my biggest thing I would change with background player is just make it so you can't just hold it. If it goes off once the killer picks somebody up, you still get exhausted. It shouldn't require you to start running. I think it's dumb that you can kind of just hold it while you're sitting on a gem because someone's too far away. I would rather this be a situational perk or one you actually do have to, in some sense, set up for. Adrenaline, technically not even an exhaustion perk, but the 40 seconds is there just so you can't just adrenaline and then sprint burst. That's mainly the point of it. Because you're basically getting the sprint burst with a 3-second running speed. It's really what it's kind of there for. It's just so you can't just double sprint burst, similar to how Blood Rush works. Blood Rush is a whole other beast. I'm writing a whole video on Blood Rush. I have used it a few times to try and get a feel for it. Perk is just bad. It is useful in like 2 situations and they never happen. So, yeah. I don't have it recorded, but there's a tragic story I have with Blood Rush where I basically I was in like the perfect situation for this perk to get the maximum amount of use, and it didn't because it was against a doctor and he happened to static shock me at the very last second during a heal. It was insane. Anyways, the last exhaustion perk, apart from Iron Will, which isn't even an exhaustion perk, is Dramaturgy. Dramaturgy is an interesting one because this one I think is fine at 40 seconds. This one is a very hard perk. I say balance. It's kind of the point of this perk. It's a random hat trick. I do think this perk is very strong if used correctly. If you're a good looper, the expose for 12 seconds isn't even that big of a deal. Because you still get the 25% haste. So the worst that happens is you get the 12 seconds of exposed, and then you're able to loop the killer for about, if you do it properly, probably those extra 10 seconds or so. There's a chance you can get the 25% haste again, which is massive. Scream and nothing happens, which is fine. You're already in chase, who cares? Or gain a random rare item. All cool effects. I love this perk to death. I think keeping it at 40 seconds is fine. Could it be lowered? Probably. But this is the thing with the exhaustion perks, right? These are, in my opinion, I consider exhaustion perks the survivor's powers, because realistically speaking, everyone brings at least one to a match. Now, Life and Sprint Burst have overtaken everything, and probably will continue to, especially ever since Dead Hard had its nerf hammer years ago. Do I think Life and Sprint Burst are necessarily overpowered? No, not at all. I don't think they necessarily need this nerf. I would just like to maybe give the other exhaustion perks a chance to shine. Similar to how Smash Hit with its nerf. While I haven't seen it ever, if I'm honest with you, but I feel like if they adjusted every single exhaustion perk to have cooldowns that are related more in line with their effects, how powerful they can be, and how many situations they're useful in, I think it could be a good way to diversify the exhaustion perks a little bit. Would it work? I don't know. I mean, people are still going to use Life and Sprint Burst probably because they're just always good. Like, there's never a situation Sprint Burst is not good. And same with Life, which is, as I always say, a bigger issue in the game. It's not so much that kit perks aren't balanced or different enough. It's that a lot of perks don't give guaranteed value. Like I said with the Overcome example, if you're in a situation where you're against a killer that can basically negate this entire perk, why would you bring it if that situation even has a chance of happening, right? Same with Smash Hit. If the killer respects pallets all the time, it doesn't matter. This perk doesn't do anything. You're just wasting it, right? Balanced, if you go to a map that doesn't have any elevation for you to fall off of, why bring Balanced? Head-on's a different beast altogether. Even Dramaturgy, while I think it's fun and way better than people give it credit for, it does have the downside of the exposed effect. So why would you risk it when you can bring Sprint Burst, which is just more consistent Dramaturgy? The only real difference between this and Sprint Burst, other than the actual speed effects, is that this is on demand, while Sprint Burst isn't, which is where Life comes in, because Life in essence is really just an on-demand Sprint Burst. And then Background Player is, once again, I know people complain about this perk a lot, but it's fine, everybody. I legitimately think Background Player is fine. If they did the change I suggested earlier, where you still get exhausted if the effect goes off, even if you don't move, I think it would be in a better spot. so people can't just, you know, kind of stack it on the other side of the map. My other suggestion was making it within a range of the killer. Maybe 40 meters, maybe 32, something so the killer has a way of knowing you're there, so you can't just come out across the map at Mach fucking speed and do something about it. But in any case, let me know what you guys think. Once again, I don't think this is necessary. I really don't. But I do want to differentiate the exhaustion perks a little bit more than they already are. Especially the ones that are lesser used. To kind of give them an upper hand on the ones that are more used. Sprint burst and life being the main two. In any case, I love y'all. Have a good one. And bye.
Subscribe, damn it. I'll be back. I always come back, and so should you, you moron.